Welcome to my daily review. Today is Wednesday, July 30th. Tomorrow's the last day of the month, and Friday is August 1st, and we have the jobs report. But you're looking at a 1 minute chart of the Nasdaq. And the reason why I have a 1 minute chart here is to show you that earnings are more important than the Federal Reserve right now. We're in the middle of earnings season, and a lot of big companies are reporting. And I just want to show you here in Jerome Powell's decision here at 1400. This is Eastern time, 2 o'clock, 11 o'clock West Coast. But, little gyration here, not much, just a little gyration when they announced no change in interest rates. We knew that there was two dissenters, blah, blah, blah. And then Powell began to spoke and he jawboned the markets down for a little bit, did he not? 21,230 to what 21, just call it 130 points. And then the markets rebounded, right? Why? Well, because earnings were coming up. We're going to hear from Microsoft and Meta Platforms. And we saw some buying into the close, and the Nasdaq actually closed up 31 points, even though Powell was trying to jawbone it down a little bit because a hot market means, people are spending, the economy's great, and, it's inflationary. People will pay up more. So anyway, they're not going to change interest rates today. September maybe, and then down the road maybe. I certainly hope so, but who am I? We all want lower rates, but he makes a good point that there's a lot of uncertainty, blah blah blah. Anyway, I don't care about that. My point is that earnings are more important. The Nasdaq closed up 31 points or 0.15%. 21,129 was the closing price. The volume, I don't care about the volume. And I'm gonna move on here because I don't want to, I have a lot of stuff to get to. The index is now 5.5% above its 50 simple moving average, and it closed above the 5 again today. So the Nasdaq is just super strong. All right. I'm going to get to as many earnings reports as I can. There's way too many to get to all of them, obviously, but ones that I saw that, caught my eye, and then I'm going to do some themes, then I'm going to get to tonight's earnings reports. All right, so I'm going to start with some of the reports from last night. Seagate, they had a good report. It's just run up a lot, and it's kind of buy the rumor, sell the news, but it did claw back and closed above its 21 there, which is a good sign. I know some people were selling this thing in the morning because it's selling off. That's just a panic move. Just hang in there. If you own the stock, if you got a good price on it, this is not a big deal. Down 3.5%. It was a good number. I mean, all companies can do is report good numbers, and you're seeing 30% sales growth, triple-digit earnings growth. I think it's fine. Yeah, it's sold off, but we've seen a lot of wonky moves around earnings, and you can see that earnings line heading north. And this is a real cyclical business. When the cycle's down, you don't want to be in these things. When the cycle's up, this thing's trending higher. I think Seagate's going to be fine. Generac, power producer, obviously, the can't get enough power. This is your classic cup with handle breakout here. This is a move not to be ignored. One of our PEGs, which I've been tracking for this quarter because I think it's important to see which companies hold up and first of all, how many do you have and how many are holding up? And Generac is certainly one of those. Gosh, they're really piling up here as I'm writing them down. But nice move there for Generac. Starbucks reported last night. Yeah, you know, Starbucks. The CEO talks a good game, and Wall Street loves him because of what he did at Chipotle. But Starbucks has got a demographic issue where the younger crowd is going to other places. They don't want to hang out where their grandma and their ma go to hang out. And the deal with Starbucks is their business model has these big, huge buildings where you go inside and you sit down, or outside you can sit down and use their Wi-Fi and work and hang out there for hours. And I just think Dutch Bros has a better business model. Their buildings are tiny, like 300 square feet maybe, so they don't. The franchisees don't spend a lot on square footage, and they're in and out fast. They use the app and they get in and out. Those lines move fast. They do have a lot of lines, and they have a lot of offerings. But the key to me is the friendly customer service because they're paid well. So happy employees make happy customers. There's a old CEO who said that. You can Google that. But that's their business model, in and out real fast, small building, so you don't spend a lot on, and you can't even franchise these things anymore. There's so much in demand. And anyway, so Starbucks was down and Bros was up, but you could see Bros just hanging out near the 200. I think, anything below 60, that thing's just screaming by here. They're going to report next week. My feeling is they're just going to knock the ball out of the park from everything that I've seen. Anyway, I'm going to move on. FTAI, aerospace and defense name, reported another move not to be ignored, Dan. Man, I got a lot of these as I'm writing them down here. I'm going to narrow them down though to, some of the better ones that I like, but they sure are piling up on me here. HOG, this is Harley Davidson. This really isn't breaking out of a base, but it does qualify as a power earnings gap. It hit the 200 and got rejected. Not what we like to see. And what was the daily range close? It looks like it's at the lower quartile. Yeah, 12%. You don't want to see that, but still, if you own it, a 13% move, that's a nice move for a hog. VRT, I did not like the action in this one today, not at all. It looked like it was really going to rip, ran up to 153. Let's check a look at the 5-minute here. Yeah, it ramped up in the morning. I thought, okay, we got something here. And then it just sold off into the close. And like I say, you see some wonky moves around earnings, and there might have just been some sellers in there. But that old 155.84, if it could trade above that, I'm more interested there than I am here at 144. And you're probably thinking, God, you're an idiot. What the hell are you talking about? But it did close that gap there at 145.41. So, yeah, okay. Did that yesterday. Yeah, disappointing move for Vert. Very strong earnings report, though. You can see the accelerating sales growth. And the Blackwell, and this is why ALAB ran up today because of this report. Wall Street making connecting the dots here, but I'm going to get to that in a minute. Let me move on. GRMN. I use Garmin products on the golf course. Down. Wow, nice pattern there too. So I say all these. There's no handle here. It's just a cup. So maybe it'll form a handle. Wash out some longs below the 21 here. And not a great earnings response, but still, if you look at the weekly here. You can see that just looks like a little shakeout here. And I wouldn't be surprised next week if it started making new highs. That's just the way of the world in the stock market. You got to hang in there with some of this stuff. There's a shakeout before the breakout, oftentimes. Yeah, they had accelerating sales and earnings growth, but like I say, around earnings, you're going to get some really wonky moves, and we're seeing that. Visa, not so much. They just, flat on the session. Cake. Cheesecake Factory. Somebody said today was National Cheesecake Day. Oh, I can't stand cheesecake, but let's take a look at the 5-minute. Yeah, okay. Ramped up, sold off, and just kind of went flat the rest of the day. Not bad though, up 5%. We'll take that all day long. TER, this is another one that's on my list because of the power earnings gap, now above the 200. So you got to love that. I'm going to make a video maybe this weekend here about these power earnings gaps here. And I'm going to whittle them down to about, the 10 best ones. This probably won't be one of them because it's got so much overhead supply, especially if you look at the weekly here. Look at all this. There's sellers out there waiting here for Teradyne, but still a nice move if you own it. Nice job. Congratulations. Sell that sucker. EDU. I always thought that Duolingo too is going to get hurt by this chat GPT, the AI, these what do they call them? LLMs, language learning models. I haven't looked at Duolingo in a long time. Yeah. I just think that they're going to get hurt by that because that's what a lot of people are using for education now. Well, either fortunately or unfortunately, that's just the way it is. Etsy reported, and it had a nice response here. This is a cup. I would say that is a handle, a shakeout. And then well, it didn't ramp. It went up 2.79% today. It was up to 68, closed at 61 at the lower, yeah, 11% of the daily range. Oh well, still up, right? Especially with, Powell trying to jawbone the markets down. He had some really strange movements today. All right, Chef's Warehouse. By the way, I'm sipping on a Dutch Bros tea as I speak. So I am biased, and I recognize it. This is Chef's Warehouse. This one was a big mover, 45 up to 68, and then pulled back, undercut the 50, and then rallied back above nearly 9% today with their earnings report. Who else do I have? Well, Wingstop. Wingstop. It has wings. Another power earnings gap. Man, there's a lot of these. More this week than last week. Um, so that's a good thing. This is in a uptrending market or a bull market, whatever you want to call it, these things usually do well. Not all of them, of course not. But the majority. All right, GEHC. This is GE Healthcare. Sold off 8%. Healthcare has been, just absolutely brutal. Yeah, I mean, Humana had a nice move, but the other one was yesterday was UNH, right? Yeah, gosh, this thing's in the tank. So healthcare has just been really tough. TKR, this is Timken, metal fabrication, down 7%. UTHR, this one was getting hit, yeah, down 5% today. And then VFC. This is an apparel clothing stock up 2%. Not bad. FSS. This one is another one that's on the um, our power earnings list. I'm running out of a room to write these things down here. But yeah, I better make that video pretty soon. I'll have to make another one. All right. And I think what else do we have here? FSS. Okay, that's it. That's it for earnings for last night and this morning. Now I'm going to get to some stocks that, I had on the ready list that, I like. ALAB. And the thought behind this is like you're going like, oh, wow, it was great. You had it on the ready list around 100 and that was cool because it ran up to what, 118 or 119. And why would you put it on again? The thought process behind this is that when institutions buy like they were here, right, on this move last week, I forget the day. Okay, July 21st. The thought process is that they're not all going to buy at once. Okay. So they buy, they nibble, and there could be some short selling here, excuse me, shorts covering here. I don't know what the short, and not a whole lot of short interest, but not a large float and with some short interest. And the thought process is they don't buy all at once. They buy, a little bit last week, a little bit next week, a little bit next month, because these institutions have footprints like you see here, and they really make the stock move. So they don't buy all at once, or they're going to be paying up. So the thought process, they'll come back, and they did today and up 8%. So that's a nice move if you got into this one. I actually bought a couple stocks today, and I was kind of hesitant to because, of the all the gyrations around Jerome Powell and earnings is a real crapshoot. But you gotta be in it to win it, I guess. But anyway, ALAB definitely one that I like. AMD another one that I really like up after hours here. Lisa Sue, they're going to report next week, and they raised prices. I guess they announced that yesterday, earlier in the week. And they're really going toe to toe here with NVIDIA here on this inference. And they're going to report, like I said, next week. And if you raise prices, you're going to have to raise guidance, I would imagine. And yeah, AMD is just on a ripper. And I think you got to really look at all time frames here for AMD. This is just forming, the right side of a base here. So AMD, I think, has a long way to go. And of course, NVIDIA, you can't talk semiconductors without talking about NVIDIA. Over 180 after hours, and I'm going to get to that. Tomorrow should be a real strong day as well for the tech stocks. Broadcom, another stock making new highs with NVIDIA. They're both made new highs today. Let's take a look at the 1 minute chart on this one. Yeah, there's your Powell sell-off, and people were really cursing him out, like he's ruining my investment. So sometimes you just got to walk away, right, for a little bit and don't look at the screen, and you're going to panic and sell good stocks because they go down a little bit. So you just got to let them wiggle around and don't really watch them too closely. Take up a hobby. This is Rambus, ripped yesterday and followed through today. So this is another one that's on our PEG list, where it had the, more than a 10% move with more than 100% above, the average daily volume. So this is a real quality one that I really like, coming out of, a real nice base here. And you could see this little, I call it a bull wedge pattern. You can call it a handle, whatever is it, gently, pulls back to a moving average and then pop. So yeah, Rambus looks good. I just had to show that one. And then SNPS, this one is got a duopoly with Cadence, and Cadence reported earlier in the week. So those two are just, yeah, there you go. Guess what? Yeah, they do have duopoly, really, those two. This is on our list as well, CDNS. So yeah, I've got a tough decision to make to whittle this thing down to 10. So I'm gonna have to make two videos this weekend, a weekend video and a power earnings gap video before we get too far into earnings season because they're really starting to pile up. All right, I got a couple more in the hardware space. CRDO, this one just keeps making new highs. They don't report till August 27th, which I like. And then SMCI, another hardware name. Yeah, not making new highs, but still, if you look at the weekly here, this is still consolidating within a base. You could call that a base, or you can call this a base right here from 122, where it made that it's a 10 for 1 stock split. So that's a 1220. So yeah, just building the right side of the base. What you want to see is it come up here and shake out there around the 100 level. So I think SMCI could get there definitely. They're going to report next week as well. So more big earnings next week here that I'm looking forward to. All right, I'm going to move on to the software group, the cybersecurity names. I saw Palo Alto down today. This is a joke, below 180. And some people are wise guys are saying, oh, it's in a stage 4 decline. The stock sucks. No, when you acquire a company, usually even if it's accretive to earnings, you're going to take a little bit of a hit on it. And Palo Alto did. And I think it's fine. If you bought this thing around 180, you're going to be happy as a clam here in a couple months. They don't report to the 25th. But yeah, if you look at this, this is not a stage 4 decline. It's still consolidating. But they bought cyber for, 25 billion, something like that. I forget. It's a 22 billion market cap. But yeah, so cyber, that deal, is announced. And so the pain for Palo Alto is behind us. And this is one that I bought today, Rubrik. I've been talking about this one. I still think it needs time within its base, but it broke above that downtrend line yesterday, as I mentioned. And my buddy keeps harping on me like, you got to get it, you got to get it. Well, it closed yesterday below its 50, and today it rallied above it. There you see the close yesterday was, 0.5% below. Today it rallied back above it, so I took a swing at this one. I still think it's going to need some time. A couple things here. 100, the 100 level should provide some resistance, and it still needs some time to, form this, the right side of the base here. So you could see something like that before making new highs with Rubrik, and they don't report for another, month and a half. So that's why, you really have to watch for your earnings reports. You don't want to get caught flat-footed. There were some stocks that reported, not the ones that I own, but ones that I wasn't even aware of that reported today that I had no clue. All right, some of the software names that I think will move with the news that we got tonight. This is Palantir. If you don't own it, well, they're going to report next week. Yeah, this is really pinching in tight. Next, what is that, Monday? They're going to report. So yeah, I think that one's going to 200. Yeah, it's just, yeah, Palantir is going higher. Oracle, another one that I like. This one, either or with Palantir, and I think this is going to be up tomorrow, yeah, after hours. I think we're going to, I shouldn't say really rip, but I think we're going to have a strong opening tomorrow. So with the news tonight. The NAP 11, this is one that I do have on my ready list. It's trading tight within the base. Near all those three of those moving averages are converging. I mean, you couldn't ask for a nicer setup here. It's closed right at its 5 EMA, 1.5% above the 21 and just right at the 50. So the 10, excuse me, the 5 and the 50 are just aligned there at 363. And that's where it closed today. After hours, up $7 on the news that I'll get to here in a minute. And then CoreWeave, you guys, some people were saying, hey, thanks a lot for CoreWeave. We shorted. Congratulations. I didn't short it. I didn't short it. I said it was a good short once it got rejected there, undercut the 50 and got rejected. And it went from, I don't know, what was the 50 at back then? 132 and now it's at 102, so 30 points. So he said he covered and he thanked me, but I said I didn't short this thing, but it does look like a short. Especially if it rallies up here to maybe the 21 or something, gets back up around I don't know, what's 121, 128. A declining 21 would probably be like 120. But yeah, that I'm not interested in CoreWeave because the cores deal and the cores is just going down, down, down. That's telling you they bought it all with all stock, and Wall Street's telling you CoreWeave stock is not worth what you think it is or what it's trading at right now. All right, fintech names that I like. Dave, undercut the 50 rallying back through. This is the thing of beauty here. You can't ignore Dave, man. This thing has got juice. They're going to report next Wednesday, so you got to know your earnings dates. SEZL going to report next Thursday. Same kind of thing. It rallied to its 50. The first time it pulled back to the 50, and this is on July 22, and the 50 was at 131. It closed today at 150. So that's a nice bounce off the 50. What else do we have here? Man, a lot of stuff to get to. Upstart, another one that every morning I show the relative strength list, and this one's on it. And this one's starting to do the higher low thing, where every time it pulls back, like here, it's a buy, then it ramps up. You buy it, then you sell it, then it pulls back. You buy it, then it ramps up, you sell it. So if you could trade it that way, or if you're just in a longer term, but they're going to report next Tuesday as well. So, like I say, a lot of these companies are reporting next week. We're not out of the woods yet. My two largest holdings, GEV and Robinhood, are at least their earnings are behind us now. Thank God. It's too stressful. GEV did ramp with earnings, after it broke out with this cup-shaped pattern, really ripped, pulled back to the 21, then ramp with earnings. Last week, got to look at the weeklies here. Yeah, it's up 1.5% this week, up after hours too. Yeah, I wanted it to be a short stroke pattern, but you can't always get what you want, as the Rolling Stones sang. And this one just wants higher prices. Just pulls back to the 50. Like yesterday, people were giving me a hard time. My buddies, they're kind of I shouldn't call them day traders. They trade options, like weekly options. So they need quick little moves. And when it goes down 2%, I'm just going like big deal. I'm holding the stock, the commons, so I don't really care. When you hold commons, you're not bound by time, right? With options, you pay for time. The further out you go, the more expensive it is. Here, you can just hold the stock and just say, hey, yeah, Liberation Day, I was here at 299. Now it's at 655. So, there's many ways to play the stock market, and I'm not saying one way is better than the other. It's whatever fits your style, and this fits my style. So that's my largest holding there, right there, GEV. And Oklo had news with Vertiv, a deal with Vertiv today and their cooling systems. And this thing was up 6.5%, which is kind of a small move for Oklo. This thing is a pretty wild trader. But I would say that 73.55 is definitely an area that, keeps coming back to it, right? An area to buy. So call it 74, and it just closed a tick above it today. They have earnings on the 11th, so you got a little bit of time there. And SMR is another one. My buddies bought this one today, but I kind of prefer GEV. I'm old school like that. I'm a little slower moving, a little larger, probably a little safer, I guess. None of them are safe. They're nuclear. How could they be safe? Anyway, that Dutch Bros tea is good, folks. LEU. I put this one on the ready list. I thought it would really pop, off the moving average, but it's below the 5 here. I don't like that. Yeah, it's the biggest mover in this group here. Yeah, it's 2% below the 5. This is the top group, and this is the top stock in the top group. So, yeah, the number one group, top performing stock, but it's not going to go up every day or every week. So if it pulls back here a couple of weeks, I was counting on this one to bounce, and it's down 6% this week. So sorry about that, folks. That's part of the deal. And stock picking down 3% last week. So a pullback is nice, 10% off the high. And just keep your losses small, and just move on to the next. If I bought this one at 230 or whatever, and they pull back to 225, or if I bought it at whatever it was today, 233, or yesterday 240, and just sell it, move on. You just don't hold on and try to argue with the market and take a bigger loss. You can always come back when it's more ready to move. That was my bad. I put that one on the ready list and it wasn't ready. VST though, trading at new highs. This one is ready. They report earnings next Thursday. The 7th is Thursday. 200 is, a buy point here. It goes all the way back to this 199.84. Before that, January 27th, DeepSeek, when we all got hammered on that one. Um, yeah, I was holding this one on the January 27th when it fell like 30%, but it's recovered now and formed this little cup. I would call this a cup with your handle here as it pulled back to 180 recently, and now it closed at 207. So Vistra looks good, but I don't want to own three or four stocks in the same group. I'm just going to choose one. GEV, if you like OKLO, if you like LEU Centris, if you like Vistra, I'm just going to choose one. That's just the way I like to play it. Anyway, I like drugs too, stocks that is. And then WGS, another one of these ones on our power earnings list. I believe it was only 9% yesterday, 12% today. So, like I say, earnings are wonky, right? After earnings, it went up 8%, but the follow through day two, was up 13%. So WGS definitely qualifies with that type of action here. I like that. I like the stock. There's a couple other drug names that I like. INSM, I had this one on the ready list just because they're going to have a PDUFA here pretty soon. And if it goes well and the drug gets approved, this thing's going to really ramp. And of course, if it doesn't go well, it's, outhouse or penthouse. So it's either going to do something like that, which we don't want, or something like this, which is what we desire. So, if you got to be in it to win it, and that's part of the lay of the land with drug stocks. Yeah, and then TGTX, they announced today they're reporting earnings on Monday morning. Just higher lows for this one. I pointed this out for a long, long, long time. 21, 27, 28, 31, 32, 3403, 3436. I'm going to say yesterday was probably your low. The shorts are going to have to cover into Monday because a very good chance they blow the number out. 35.20 was your low yesterday. So I'm not saying it's totally safe to buy now ahead of earnings and they're going to ramp up to, above 40.99, call it $41 here. But I think that's a very good or likely possibility for TGTX. All right, I'm going to move on from the drugs to another one of my favorite groups here, and this is the builders, the build out of the data center power play. This is your number two group here, and this is MasTech. Just surfing the five like Kelly Slater, just a thing of beauty. Another one, power got excuse me, Quanta Services got downgraded yesterday, and this thing is, and I love action like this. Makes a high, then pulls back, but higher lows, right? I mean, look at these lows here. So it's just got a steady higher low here and pinching in nicely. I think that's going to pop pretty soon, but I'm not going to put it on the ready list because I got enough stuff on there. And yeah, but I do like it. I have this one on instead, Argan. This one still you can see within the base. It was trading tight within the base, but kind of moved last week. I put it on again this week, kind of hesitated to do it, but I still like the stock in a base. You very rarely find, and a lot of the leading stocks are extended, and you can see this one made a big move and has now formed a base. I think it's ready to move again, but probably needs some time to, have a little shakeout here. Earnings are, a month away. All right, so that's it for me. Thank you for watching. At mcstockcharts.com, we never give up, except in honor of the great Steve Jobs. I'm gonna have another sip of that Dutch Bros tea. I'm gonna get to one more thing. I'm going to get to some of the earnings that we really want to see tonight, the real important earnings, and that is Transmedics. They reported this is one that had been on my leading stock list for a while, and you can see it made this gap down here on this date, where the low was what 80, what was it? Whoops. The low was 126.12, and then it formed this big base and it filled that gap there up to 145, and now is sold off really inexplicably with the market rallying. This thing sold off, undercut its 50, and now starting to form this base. And tonight it's up to 114. They reported real strong earnings and also had some other news. I would expect this stock. You could see only 31 million shares, real small float. That looks to me like a nice cup with a handle. I think it's going to pop. 120 is possible. Anyway, TMDX with a nice report, and I know you guys don't care about that. You care about Microsoft. And this is what's going to power the market higher tomorrow. Your QQQs, your Nasdaqs, your software names. When Microsoft, reports a number like they did, you can see this one's been surfing like Stephanie Gilmore, right? Just on that five the whole way. And tomorrow it's going to pop. Meta Platforms with another powerful earnings report. This one had pulled back to the 50 prior to the report, up 9% after hours. So if Zuckerberg doesn't say something stupid on the conference call, we should have a nice day with Meta Platforms and Microsoft. These are really big companies going up. So you got a company going up, roughly 10% off of 1.7, billion market cap. So it's going to add what, 170 billion tomorrow of market cap. So yeah, that bodes well for the markets tomorrow. S&P and the Nasdaq. All right, Robinhood. This is my second largest stock to sell it. So when I saw the print, I bought back a little bit more because that's just my style. It was up, it was down, but as long as it stays above 100, I'm fine with Robinhood. They reported a real stellar quarter, nearly a billion in revenue again. Their quarter, 2 quarters ago, they were over a billion. And yeah, so their gold subscription must be going well. And yeah, if it just stays above 100, I'm happy. I'm not expecting a 10% move after this. It had a 240% move, from 29 up to whatever it was, 113. So yeah, I'm fine. If it trades between 113 and 100, yeah, I want to own Robinhood. Thank you very much. Okay, Carvana, man, this thing is just ripping after hours. 15% move, pull back here to the 50s. That's the difference. It's not at a new high. It pulled back pretty significantly, 8.5% off the highs as it reported earnings now at $50 or 15% after hours. So congrats to the longs there. Lam Research, LRCX, this is in the semiconductor space, up, above 100. We'll take that. All good. A couple others that, I can't get excited about, but reported Ford. And then Qualcomm was kind of a bummer, down 5%. But, you can't all be winners, right? I mean, if you got AMD and NVDA and ALAB and all these other winners in the fabless space, Qualcomm. Anyway, I'm not going to get into it. ARM, another one that reported tonight, down 8%. Yeah, Kinross Gold, KGC. Man, did you see what happened to copper today? I'll get to that in a minute. And then TTMI reported tonight. This thing's been on a heater. It's those electrical contracting manufacturing group with Sanmina and CLS. Yeah, very nice. Yeah, that's a really strong group, a top three group. And TTMI is where I was getting to. Reported tonight, real strong report. It's up a lot, but if it hangs around 50, that would be fantastic. I did want to mention copper. There was tariff news on copper, and that copper was down 20%, and these copper plays really got hammered. Um, Southern Copper. Freeport McMoran was down 10%. So CCJ Kamiko, the miner, that's not so much into copper, but the miners kind of got hit today with and I'll have more on that in the morning. There was a tariffs. I don't know. I want to say Brazil tariffs. I can't keep up with all the tariffs. Anyway, that's what knocked copper down 20%. So if you own those copper plays like IE, I've been talking about that one. This is a copper play that but that happens, right? And it pulled back nearly to its 50. Big sell volume the last 3 days in Ivanhoe. And this is kind of like a longer term 5-year plan here play. I don't think they're going to get anything out of the ground here in Arizona until 2028. So we're still in 2025, right? So it's going to be a while. All right. That's it for me. No, I lie again. I have one more thing. Tomorrow, excuse me, we're going to hear from a couple companies. Roblox is one that, I'm definitely interested in. AbbVie, this is a larger 334 billion market cap drug stock. So I'm kind of interested to see what they have to say. CCJ reports in the morning as well. And the steel name Carpenter, which has been a big winner in a top group, top stock in a top group, they report in the morning. ATI reports, I believe, 31. I think it's after the markets close. You can see those two are just surfing higher prices. Then MasterCard reports in the morning. Thank you for watching at mcstockcharts.com. We never give up.